From the hurdles facing a pipeline push to drafting legislation with the stroke of a key, buying local this holiday season, and celebrating Christmas on a grand scale, our Primetime This Week panel is in. And joining us this evening, Danielle Paradis, a freelance writer and associate professor of journalism at MacEwan University, and Darren Krause, editor and founder of LiveWire Calgary. Good evening to you both, and let's begin on developments in the wake of Thursday's signing of a memorandum of understanding between Alberta and Ottawa that paves the way to a potential pipeline, notably Steven Guilbeault's resignation from cabinet. The former federal environment minister claims the agreement moves Canada away from its greenhouse gas reduction targets, adding there was no consultation with the province of BC or coastal First Nations, who are also sharing their opposition.
We will never consent to allowing oil tankers in our coastal waters. We will never tolerate exemptions to an oil tanker ban that has existed for over 50 years, and it is foundational to protecting our economy and our way of life.
Coastal First Nations plan to use every tool in their toolbox to stop a pipeline, including legal action. The Canadian Climate Change Institute also voicing concern. It says the MOU suggests climate change rules are negotiable. Danielle, we heard from Alberta's Minister of Indigenous Relations off the top. What kind of conversation do you expect lies ahead for the Smith government in working with affected First Nations to earn social license, be successful in getting a pipeline?
I mean, there's some legal requirements such as UNDRIP that need consultation for First Nations communities, but it seems to me that the answer has already been no. So if we're going to talk about consent and building consent or listening to concerns, I would say we're already not off to a good start where coastal First Nations are concerned. There may be a different license and a different way of thinking about it in Alberta. I have not heard anything from Treaty 6 about their opinions yet, but I'm curious to hear that. But I think right now, the concerns have already been expressed. It's just a matter of, are you going to choose to listen to First Nations communities or not?
Darren, what does the resignation of Steven Guilbeault from the Carney cabinet in the wake of the MOU signing signal about the federal political dynamic moving forward?
Well, you know what, I think, I mean, strictly from the pipeline front, I mean, obviously, the minister was very much against these types of projects, particularly those that involved Alberta. And to me, that's what it really signals, is the federal government's approach to Alberta, with maybe a realization that the country is significantly stronger with Alberta in it than with it on the outside. So, I mean, the pipeline overall, in my mind, is an olive branch that actually might have more political ramifications here in Alberta, where it might quell some of the sovereignist talk that we've seen, over the past number of months and I guess maybe years, largely due to the fact that Ottawa won't listen, particularly on topics like a pipeline.
Danielle, on that relationship front, what is to be made of the apparent truce between the Alberta and federal governments with this MOU, and how sustainable do you expect it to be?
Yeah, I mean, that is a maybe not a surprise, but it shows you Mark Carney's strategy is to include Alberta, and it kind of in stark contrast to the more oppositional relationship between Trudeau and Smith. It may defang her a little bit in that it coming into the AGM, there's this unity, but the easiest way to win popular support in Alberta has always been to beat up on the federal government. So I also wouldn't expect to see that stopping anytime soon. So really interesting timing, and I think that that's probably on both of their parts. They both wanted to go in with this win, but although I don't know if I agree with Darren. I think the separatists are that's their thing. They're not going to change. They love the idea of separatism. It's their social group.
Darren, we asked Minister Sawhney about maybe any apprehension heading into the AGM. How much of a win does this deliver to Danielle Smith heading into the UCP's convention?
Well, I think it comes at a very, very key time, because while we're talking about this potential for a pipeline, the MOU, there are a lot of other things that are going on in Alberta right now that could take away from the UCP and could be, I guess, maybe pockmarks on their agenda so far this year. But the thing is that she's dug her heels in on this whole Alberta energy sector and the importance of having a new pipeline. And these are the first steps towards getting it. So again, hopefully it cools the jets with that better relationship with Ottawa. Hopefully it cools the jets on all of the Alberta or the sovereign Alberta in a united Canada talk.
All right, next up, liquor and a unique approach to drafting new legislation. Well, companies like Calgary's Burwood Distillery will have a hand in developing the new Alberta Whiskey Act, helping define what's legally Alberta whiskey, things like ingredients, characteristics, and taste. The actual author, though, may surprise you.
I'm actually really excited about the utilization of artificial intelligence in the drafting of this act.
Yeah, you heard that right. The deployment of AI.
What a better piece of legislation than the Alberta Whiskey Act. It doesn't involve any hearts or lungs. If AI gets it wrong, then we can use human writers that can correct it.
The government says guardrails will be in place to ensure accuracy, and other jurisdictions are likely to be watching closely.
This is a moment where expectations are going to be set around what AI systems are going to be used for and how they can be used by lawmakers to be able to shape Canadian precedent.
Tabling of Alberta's new Whiskey Act expected in 2026. Darren, some states south of the border have already tapped into AI for legislative assistance. But what strikes you about Alberta being a Canadian frontrunner in this regard?
I mean, to a degree, you know what? I'm not sure if leadership is the word that I would use. AI has been around for a while. We've been talking about it. Maybe that's part of the reason why. To a certain extent, I'm surprised that it's taken this long for anybody in Canada to go this route. So the leadership may exist in the fact that, okay, we're cutting out bureaucrats to do some of this, but as one of your speakers, the clip said, we are still going to have to require human oversight here. The real leadership question, in my mind, actually comes down to whether or not they're going to let the public in on the inputs that are used to derive the legislation. And to me, that's really, really important, because we can say, oh, hey, AI here, it's created this and it's taken all this into consideration. But it's very easy to influence AI based on the initial inputs that are used. And I think finding those out is probably going to be more important in terms of leadership on something like this.
All right, so Danielle, how confident are you that AI will craft more effective legislation? Is this something to be relied on where Alberta laws, regulations, policies are all concerned?
I mean, I suppose we'll see. I have, AI, I deal with it quite regularly as a professor, and it does not churn out amazing papers. So I hope it does a better job in legislation than it does in essays, because it's less than ideal right now. But just like I tell my students, you really have to be careful in this research phase when you use AI, because it lacks nuance and it lacks the ability to determine factual reality in the same way that humans, well, I would say maybe we lack some ability there too, but more so if it's pulling from a random Reddit thread or a Facebook post on what legislation should be. So it would be very curious. I'd like to see where the research is coming from, and I hope that they'll be transparent on the inputs and the outputs and the sourcing.
All right, time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, the buy local push this holiday season and a Christmas display dominating the entire block. More from our Primetime This Week panel in a moment. Welcome back. When the Trump administration began slapping tariffs on Canadian goods, many on this side of the border were encouraged to buy local. And while retailers like Local 95 in Edmonton's Bonnie Doon Mall were hoping to capitalize on the movement, it's been a slow year. Now, however, sales have taken a turn.
Almost every day we have new customers coming in, people who've never been in the mall, who are trying to shop local and support local more than any other year I've seen.
At the Night of Artists Gallery and Gift Shop, sales already up 15%.
Every year it's been going up and up for our sales, and I believe this year even more so, probably because of the environment where we're looking to shop and support local.
According to the Retail Council of Canada, more than 3/4 of Canadians plan to shop closer to home this year.
Canadians seem to have become more nationalistic and patriotic now, which means they are choosing to spend their dollars on Canadian retailers and local products. I advise retailers to make this buy local and promote Canada sentiment more often in their stores.
The Retail Council says Albertans plan to spend about 23% more this holiday season than last. Darren, how much of a shift toward the sale of local and Canadian-made goods are you noticing in the holiday shopping marketplace? Are retailers taking advantage of the opportunity?
You know what? I honestly haven't seen it that much, and it's maybe just because of where I look or the past that I travel. But with that said, I'm not the shopper in our family, so I know for us as a family, we are still paying attention to the grocery stores. And maybe when it comes to holiday meals, this is still going to be an issue, in terms of whether a product is made in Canada or grown in Canada. But when it comes to Christmas time, it's a question of convenience and cost for us, and that's where unfortunately something like Amazon tends to be the quick fix. And I actually think that's a balance that many families are still looking at for the holiday season.
Danielle, how are you approaching this holiday season? Are you making a concerted effort to buy local?
Yeah, I mean, buy local. I particularly like to support Indigenous artists, so my family loves going to markets, and you can see earrings. I've always got a new pair, so that's an endless resource pool that I'm dipping into. But my family has scaled back significantly as well this year, so we're looking local, edible. Maybe thrifted is a thing that my friend group and I are talking about too. I think Canadians are more conscientious of this than ever, not only because of the tariffs, but also because of cost.
Yeah, that's a bottom line for all of us, always. Now, sticking with Christmas, the holiday theme, some Albertans get into the spirit in a really, really big way.
I like creating things and getting people's response on it.
Meet Jerry Dolanchuk, the mastermind behind Maisie's Magical Christmas House, a mainstay in North Edmonton, bringing merriment for more than 20 years.
You could just see the smiles on their face. They get in a good mood. And, I do a lot of reading the comments. And, one of the big comments are people are depressed. They come here, depression is gone, they're happy, they're in a good mood.
Yeah, and it's infectious, as neighbor Clinton Beck found out 15 years ago.
The very first day I moved in, Jerry came over to visit and welcomed me to the neighborhood. And one of his first questions, he goes, "How do you feel about Christmas?"
And their ensuing friendship has led to an even bigger display, one the namesake Dolanchuk's mother, Maisie, would probably have approved of.
She knows what I'm like. She probably would expect me to get here.
The display, by the way, raising funds for the Second Chance Animal Rescue. Danielle, Jerry Dolanchuk starts on this in September. What does the scale of the endeavor say to you about dedication?
There's Christmas people, and you can just tell he's one of them. So he's getting started early. He's got a constant display. It's really fun to see, and I love that community feel. It's one of my favorite things about decorating for any holiday is the way that people come out and they can talk about it, and it creates a real sense of connection where we're missing that in our world.
Yeah, and he welcomes the community in as well to have a look. Darren, what level of motivation would it take for you to create a display on the scale of Maisie's Magical Christmas House?
Well, you know what? It's an annual ritual where my wife bugs me to put up the sparse Christmas lights that we do have. But you know what? Whenever I pass by some of these real decked out houses, it reminds me, of course, of the Griswolds from National Lampoon's Christmas movie. And it's at that point where I think to myself, this is really fun to drive by because we have a couple of them in our neighborhood, but I just have no desire to be that person. My wife, on the other hand, she would love to do something like this. And then the same thing would happen where I end up having to clean it up in the end. So, I mean, as we're opening it up to the public, if we did have it, why not?
Yeah, indeed. Give me a reason to drive by your household on the lead up to holidays. All right, folks, we're out of time. Have to leave it there. Thank you kindly. Hope you have an awesome weekend.
Thank you.
You too, Michael. Thank you.